Hello, my friends. Cinema, or film, or movie, or motion picture, these are terms that we use to describe moving images, which we later screen to the public, either in a big building with big screens that we call cinema houses, or in small screens that we call TVs. And now, with the advancement of technology, we can screen on mobile phones. Cinematography and filmmaking is considered to be one of the most popular arts. There are different kinds of filmmaking. There are those similar to the theater that have dramatic films and action films or science fiction films, and there is also documentary filmmaking. It tells us about the real information and facts that happened in the past in a way that people can get to know new information while being entertained. Cinema is called the seventh art, the art of using image and sound to create events. It's a universal language that tells us stories about the hopes and fears of humanity. It helps us understand the world and people around us. Filmmaking is a medium that brings together art, industry, technology, and politics. But before I start talking about movies and drama and action, we have to go all the way to the beginning of the story. Because the beginning of the story is a pure coincidence. A coincidence that happened between artists and inventors who were experimenting in the field of technology, trying to document snippets of our reality. I am Ihab Jadallah, and I am here to share with you a story about the birth of cinema. Are you ready? Lights, camera, action! With time passing by and technology advancement, filmmaking has made it easy for us to move from analog to the digital, like when you make a selfie video of yourself. Cinema is based on still images projected one after the other continuously on a high speed, so the viewer couldn't see the black bars between the images. Rather, they would only see a moving image. This was a magical trick, and this trick combined with science and physics and chemistry, also with art, theater, literature, music, and of course, photography. But how does this visual trick work? It's a trick that the brain plays on the eyes, or the eyes plays on the brain. In the 19th century, the scientist Peter Mark Roget named it the persistence of vision. It's a phenomena that doesn't allow the viewer to see the black bars between images, just like this one. You see, there is an image, a space, and another image. These images, when screened one following the other one, in a high speed, the brain captures the image for 1/5 of a second. If we screen another image for it in this time, then the brain wouldn't see the black spaces between the two images. It will see a moving image. Imagine the drawing book that we call a flip book. When we draw one page, and then on the next page we draw something else, and then flip them together, it gives us the feeling of a moving image. Another device that was invented and showed moving images is the zoetrope. It's a circular device that looks like a cylinder. Inside the cylinder there is images. From the outside there are openings through which we can see these images. Once we roll the cylinder, the images seem to be moving. For a long time this was the closest we got to filmmaking, till photography came along. In fact, the birth of cinema started with still photography. It was invented by Louis Daguerre. He managed to reveal the image on a plate covered with chemical material. It was a very long process, but with time and experimentation of several inventors, we are able now to develop images faster. One day, an ex-governor of California, Leland Stanford, made a bet in a horse race that the 4 feet of the horse didn't touch the ground at some point. So he brought an English inventor to design 12 cameras that can take images of the horse running. They discovered that, in effect, the horse didn't touch the ground always. The 12 still images of the running horse was an important experiment and attracted inventors and artists alike to study the possibility of projecting these images continuously to obtain a sequence of the horse running. After the experiment with the horse running, a French inventor, Etienne Jules Marie, invented the photographic gun, but instead of putting bullets in it, he actually used a chemical plate, and when he pulled the trigger, it would take 12 images in a second of any moving object. This brought us even closer to filmmaking. This invention brought the attention of another inventor, Thomas Edison. I'm sure you heard of him related to many other inventions. One of his inventions was a device that could screen these 12 images, but they still needed to invent another device that could take images more and for longer time. So he set up a lab to develop these devices and was able to invent a camera that could take images for 16 seconds long. But both devices were very big and it was impossible to carry, and it took only one image from one angle. So they used it to film from one angle only for 16 seconds. And the screening device was also a huge one and only allowed viewing for one person at a time. So it was still difficult for filmmaking to become an industry as we know it today. To be able to film several things from different angles and screen it on a big screen for a crowd of people needed a little bit more work. Though Edison and his assistant Dickson invented several devices to capture and screen images, in France, the Lumiere Brothers, who were inventors of cinematography equipment, invented a device that they named the cinematograph. It was a device that could capture and screen images on a big screen using light. By the way, the Lumiere means light. The Lumiere Brothers didn't believe that filmmaking was going to bring any income. Yet they decided to open an institution for screening films in Paris. This project was run by their father Antoine Lumiere, who gave up on his factory to rent a room in the Grand Café in Paris on the 28th of December 1895. It was the first screening ever known. They screened 10 films. Among these films, Employees Leaving the Lumiere Factory, or The Train Arrival. This film had a huge importance because people thought that the train was going to come out of the screen and run through the screening room, and they ran away. At least, this is what we know. Cinema, since the early days, had two directions, a documentary approach and a fiction approach. The Lumiere Brothers, through their small films related to the daily life, they were heading towards the documentary filmmaking. And that's why they filmed the train station and the factory employees. But also, they visited the Holy Land where they filmed Nazareth, Haifa, and Jerusalem. The first one to go in the fiction direction was Georges Méliès. He was a magician. George was at the screening of the Lumiere Brothers at the Grand Café. He liked the idea of filmmaking and he decided to become a filmmaker himself. He made several short films, A Game of Cards, The Disappearing Lady, and The Man with Four Heads. Most of these films were magic tricks. But also George made one of the most important films ever made, A Voyage to the Moon, where the visual effects were the main element in the film. That's why Georges Méliès is considered the pioneer of the science fiction. After these small screenings, people started to have hunger to watch films, and this is how screening rooms became a popular thing. In the 19th century, mobile screenings took place in small cities and towns. This brought in more crowds and generated more money. This made cinema houses open their doors to public, resulting in more films to come out. This was followed by the appearance of great filmmakers. One of those great filmmakers was Edwin Porter. He made a very important fiction film, The Great Train Robbery. The importance of The Great Train Robbery was due to its narrative structure. Meanwhile the thieves robbed the train, the police was searching for them. This is a very important advancement in filmmaking, because of the first time it showed us two events happening in different places but at the same time. This was a new way to use the editing technique, and it was highly important for filmmaking. This film was made in 1903. Later, the greatest filmmaker in the history of film appeared, David Griffiths. He was the first to make a full feature length through his film A Birth of a Nation. He was the first to create a company that produced films. Griffith was the first to put the basis of the film language as we know it today. He had great interest in the narrative and the character development. He was the first to use the close-up and the flashback that takes us to the past or memories. These techniques are still used today. Finally, we have a camera and a projector and a place where to watch movies, cinema house, and of course, people that paid tickets to watch these films. At first, it was all in black and white and silent. Later, it developed to bring in color and sound like the films we watch today. Now, my friends, I want to give you an exercise to make at home. Shots are measured in relation to the human body. Let's suppose this is a human. We are now seeing a wide shot. And this is an American shot because it was used in Western films to show the gun. And this is a medium shot and a close-up shot. Now I want you to film any family member with these different sizes.